Hello, my name is Mary Lisa Pena, and this is my slideshow on validation test analysis. So let's go over on an overview. We're going to talk about the purpose of validating instruments and methods. We'll go over a validation study with the description of a 3D printing Artex Spire structured light scanner, what validation test was performed, the importance of focusing on standards in the quality management systems in the validation test, as well as the analysis and review of the validation test, and what was thorough, and if there were any analytical gaps within the test, and what should have been included in the study. So let's start with the purpose of validating instruments and methods prior to use. So methods and equipment used need to be accurate, efficient, and trustworthy. They provide accuracy, efficiency, trustworthy. This brings assurance in the court systems that results provided are accurate to prove guilt and innocence. This brings compliance with the ISO IEC 17025, 17020 in the lab, and also ensuring that the results are reliable. So let's describe what the Artex Spire structured light scanner is. So this Artex Spire structured light scanner scans 3D impressions. In this study, it would be the shoe impressions. It discharges the structured light patterns, and the camera brings out that 3D surface based on the distortion of light. So it brings out the shoe impressions in 3D. So the test performed was to investigate the precision and accuracy of the Artex Spire and precision of the 3D scanning compared to your traditional scans of impressions. It required repeat scans of footwear impressions, as well as the scan impressions created using the Artex Spire structured light scanner, and eventually they were calculated the statistical variability of error rates. So it started with the impressions made in soil. This was their control. They used 3 different footwears that were new and clean. The 3 impressions were made by Nike, Converse, and police boots that were used in casework. The new and clean was to avoid the contaminations, so no additional uncontrolled variables were added. The impressions were made in using trays of clay, so that added no additional uncontrolled variables. The first impressions were made and then taken by the camera, captured by external flash, held varying angles, enhanced shadowing, and contrast impressions. And then after those were made, then they did the 3D scanning, which after every use of the Artex Spire was calibration prior to conducting experiments. So the 3D scans impressions created the Artex structured light. This was calibrated prior to conducting experiments using Artex Spire calibration board, calibration tool with Artex Studio software. Scans conducted were 8 frames per second. There was 3 scans required of each shoe for Converse and the police boots, 6 scans of the Nike impressions. This was to determine error rate later on, and it was used the process using the Artex Pro 12 software to create 3D model using the modeling impressions, and then compared these were compared and calculations made of the 3D model of impressions on software to determine deviations occurred, outliers, and how accurate the program and instrument is when it comes to impression comparisons. So the importance of focusing on standards and quality management is research. So in the study, certain methods were used, like the match bounding box center tools. It was research for validation that helped create accurate results with 3D impressions. Did not do research. If they did not do research, then the results would not follow accuracy and would not follow the standards of ISO IEC 17025 and 17020. Another importance is following the ISO IEC standards. Calibrating the instruments before use and cleaning was done in the study. This is important so there was no contaminants, and calibrating the instrument helps with getting the most reliable, accurate results of the scan of the impressions possible. The controlled outcome in the lab helps the study validate with no contaminants or anything influencing the results of the study. So having the new shoes, controlled study in the lab, calibrating, and doing your research are all important with focusing in on the quality management of your lab. So the analysis and review of the study, this was the comparing of the 3D scanning with impressions and reference using the software covered known shoes, typically found in case impressions of shoes created wearing and walking in soil and controlled environments. So it was covered and in a controlled environment in the lab. The Artex spider light scanning calibrated prior to conducting experiments, and the calculations resulted with error rates low, and 3D scans were proved to be a better method than the distortion of the camera scans. So the study was fairly thorough, covering all bases between outliers, comparisons, making determination of error rates in 3D scanning, used other methods in scan, and talks about how they are validated by other studies, like the match bounding box using the alternative close point tool, discuss flexion and discussing the flexibility of the shoes and movement of soil that may create problems in the future. Data supports claims of the 3D scanning offers a non-destructive method, be successful of accuracy and precision. It discusses limitation of sunlight as well as anything in the future that could possibly contaminate the evidence. As I can see, there was no gaps between the measuring deviations, precision, and error rates in the validation study. So what I think should have been included in the study is possibly adding more variations of the shoe types. There are different types of shoes out there. Possibly different weight impressions of the shoes in soil that could be less or more impressed. Also, more information possibly about the software that was used as well. So let's talk about a recap. The purpose of validating, we went over the purpose of validating instruments and methods, description of 3D printing, Artex spider structured light scanner, the validation test performed, the importance of focusing on standards and quality management, analysis and review of the validation test, and the thorough analytical gaps, as well as what should have been included in the study. And that is my presentation.